Nicholas Shane Stephenson, a 34-year-old man from North Carolina, and his partner, 29-year-old Deandra Fuhr-Farlow, are both in custody facing charges of first-degree murder and intentional CA resulting in serious bodily injury in regards to the death of their newborn baby girl, Riley Leshae Hannah Stephenson. Emergency medical services were called out to a residence in Candler, North Carolina, Tuesday, June 28th at around 2:30 p.m. The 2-month-old girl's mother, Deandra Fuhr-Farlow, had called emergency services because her child, Riley Leshae Hannah Stephenson, was unresponsive in her crib. When first responders arrived, they immediately noticed that Riley appeared to have visible physical injuries. She was emaciated to the point where skin was loose on her body. She had been starved. She had injuries including bruising and burns to her face. A 2-month-old baby girl, emaciated to the point that her skin was loose on her body, bruising and burns to her face. She was rushed to hospital, and tragically she succumbed to her injuries and she was pronounced dead that very same evening. Riley, 2 months old, had around 5 separate burn marks covering the back of her head and face. There were other injuries including a fracture to her left collarbone, multiple broken ribs, a fractured right arm, and she was also dehydrated. How did these awful injuries occur? The mother claims that the injuries occurred because Riley accidentally struck her head on the faucet on the tap in the bathtub a couple of weeks prior. Riley's mother told investigators that Riley's burns occurred when the mother and the partner, who I believe is the mother and the father, treated the injury that Riley had sustained with a hot and cold pack. So the bruising came because of an accident, and then the burn marks came because the parents applied a hot and cold pack. All a load of stuff and nonsense, absolute bullshit. The investigators didn't buy it. Of course, the investigators are not absolute idiots. And with that, during police interviews, the mother changed her story. Riley's injuries and bruises no longer occurred due to accidents. Now, the mother claims that her partner, Nicholas Shane Stephenson, 34 years of age, had physically abused Riley. The mother claimed that her boyfriend, and to be sure, I'm not sure if he is the father or not, the article hasn't clarified that point, but they occurred due to her boyfriend physically abusing 2-month-old Riley. The mother claimed that her boyfriend dangled Riley by her feet several times and shook her until she cried. She claims that she saw her boyfriend choking 2-month-old Riley. So here's a question, Mom, why the fuck didn't you reach out to the police? You witnessed your boyfriend, who may or may not be the father of your child, physically abuse 2-month-old Riley on multiple occasions. You saw him dangling her by her feet several times, shaking her until she cried several times. You saw her choking 2-month-old Riley at least once, and you couldn't be fucked to pick up the phone and call the police. You fucking sick cunt, Mom. Even if what you're saying is true there, even if you as the mother had no involvement in directly physically abusing 2-month-old Riley, if you didn't lay hands on 2-month-old Riley, but you stood by and let your boyfriend do so multiple times, you're a sick, evil cunt. You need to be jailed for the rest of your life. And again, she is currently jailed, Deandra Fuhr-Farlow. She's facing charges of first-degree murder and intentional CA, resulting in serious bodily injury and the death of her own daughter, Riley Stephenson, as is her boyfriend. We're told that in the medical examiner's report, Riley was described as being extremely underweight and suffering from florid pneumonia. I'm not 100% sure what florid pneumonia is, but it's not particularly good. She had no medication and almost no nourishment in her system at the time of the death, meaning she was being starved. She had almost no nourishment in her system. So if you eat, I'm going to use the term remnants. It may not be the right term, but there's going to be remnants. There's going to be aspects which are considered nourishment for several days, perhaps even weeks. I don't know 100%, but that is terrible to have no nourishment in her system. She was emaciated as well as being dehydrated, and she had no medication, no painkillers, nothing to treat her level of malnutrition, nothing to treat her level of dehydration, nothing to treat her general emaciation, nothing to treat her florid pneumonia. The medical examiner told detectives that Riley had not been eaten for several days prior to her death. Several days. A child, 2 months old. If we believe the mother, which we should not automatically do, of course, but if we were to, she claims that her boyfriend physically attacked Riley on multiple occasions, shook her, dangled her by her feet, choked her, and by her own admission, she stood by and let it happen. And she has confessed to that. So I would think that this is somewhat of an open and shut case, not entirely, of course, but I would think that effectively she's provided a confession to investigators, and I would presume that also means that she's acting as a witness against her partner, and with that I would think that the prosecution have an extremely strong case. Of course, the medical examiner examiner is an expert, and the evidence that is provided by the medical examination report is of the highest standard possible. The medical examiner said that Riley had not been eating for several days prior to her death. Multiple visible bruises and burns on Riley's face, emaciated, dehydrated. All of these are facts, documented facts, and all of these injuries, illnesses, lack of treatment occurred whilst Riley was in the care of her mother and the mother's boyfriend. Again, I'm not 100% sure if the mother's boyfriend, Nicholas Shane Stephenson, is the father of 2-month-old Riley. I would think so, I would expect so, but who knows. I'm glad that this is likely an open and shut case. I'm glad that these two pieces of shit are in custody and will remain in custody until they face a trial. I believe that to be the case, and I'm glad that the prosecution is going to have such a strong case, a wealth of evidence. I would think that they're very likely to be found guilty. That's my estimation, of course, my speculation, but that's what I would think. Very likely that they'll both be found guilty of the charges laid against them, including first-degree murder. And with that, I hope that they suffer severe sentencing. The maximum sentencing available would be my preference. Do we think that's going to happen? Well, I think it's accurate to say that women do get a bit of a pass in a lot of these cases. Not all, but quite a few. The mother, seemingly, according to her story, acted as an enabler. She was aware of the physical abuse that Riley suffered at the hands of her boyfriend. She did fuck all about it. She failed to seek medical attention for Riley in regards to the florid pneumonia, in regards to her emaciation, in regards to her dehydration, in regards to her injuries, a fractured collarbone. She absolutely is guilty of CA, neglect. She absolutely should be punished and indeed found guilty of murder if that is an accurate account of things. But I can well imagine that she'll be given somewhat of a pass in regards to sentencing, because she'll be able to put her hand up and say, oh, I'm sorry, I was too scared to do anything. I was too scared to act like a normal human and protect my child. I was scared of my boyfriend that I chose to have a relationship with. She'll pull that card. Her defense lawyers will pull it for her, and it might work. It probably will work. She's gonna get a softer sentence, isn't she? Because she's a woman, and because it was her partner, seemingly, according to her accounts of things, it was her partner that did the actual physical abuse. So I do suspect that she's going to get soft sentencing. She's not going to get life in jail. It's not going to be as bad as it would be if this happened in England or Australia, but that's my concern. My concern is that she'll get a pass to some extent. Other than that, of course, I have to say full condolences to all those touched by the murder and treatment of Riley Leshae Hannah Stephenson, 2 months old. Obviously, she didn't have her own friends. Her closest family utterly betrayed her, took her life, but perhaps there are others that are a part of the family that are devastated by Riley's death. Perhaps grandparents, perhaps the father, if the father is someone other than Nicholas Shane Stephenson. We're not told if any other children are a part of the family. I presume not, but I'm sure there are some that are touched by the awful neglect that Riley faced. So condolences to those people. I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. If you're in a position to consider joining my memberships, please do. Perhaps you're able to drop a super thanks, but if you're not able to do any of those things, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to thank you for your time and take care.